Thanks for stopping by MinnesotaBlack RobeRegiment. I'm excited to have a success story, so to speak, here with me for this video. Her name is Laura. She has, I don't know how to, I'll let her explain her business, but she's been very forthright in our introductory conversation about she's not struggling the way some small business owners are, but she is a small business owner, and to some degree she has been impacted by some of the stuff that's been happening in the last year. And I wanted to get her story out as much as we get others out, because I think every story that we tell and hear how it's impacted individuals in the state of Minnesota and other places, I think they're all important. So Laura, thanks for setting aside some time. As we've talked about, I know you're an old soul and like to go to bed early, so we won't keep you for too long. So tell us a little bit, tell us the name of your business, what you do, how you got started and why, and then we'll see if I can surprise you with something, you know, terribly impossible to answer.
All right. Yeah, so I'm Laura. I own West Wedding Company. I'm 23. I started doing photography when I was 18, straight out of high school. Because I was homeschooled, my parents really pressured me to do whatever I wanted to do in life. And I always was drawn to photography. I knew I wanted to be my own boss. There's really no better place to pursue having a business than here in America. So I decided I could do that. Go ahead.
First of all, how dare your parents pressure you to do what you want? And two,
I know, right?
There was a time where owning a business in the United States was easy. So go ahead.
So I should say, back when I started, it was easy. Now, not so much. So yeah, I officially started my business when I was 21. I just dabbled until then. Officially started business and started doing stuff like paying taxes when I was 21. And then now have a full-time wedding photography business. At 23, I travel all over the nation, meet with all kinds of different couples. Yeah, my passion was really just to document life and people. And so that just kind of evolved into what I do now. And like I said, it's full time. And I've been, the start of the pandemic was really, really tough. But then I made some tough decisions. And ever since then, it's been success after success. So did I understand you? You say you travel all over, or did travel all over the nation to do photography, or you still do? I've started to. So I have weddings in Colorado. I've shot with meet couples in Colorado, and I have weddings in California this year. So it'll be my first time being in California.
Have you set aside the 10 days of quarantine time that you're required to put in when you travel there?
No. Nope, I haven't. I do work from home a lot, but definitely something I'm not concerned about. That'll probably come back to bite me if I'm not here in a couple weeks. You guys can just know that the government somehow put me away. But yeah, no, I've been traveling this entire time. I've been in Texas.
Are you driving or
flying?
Flying.
I've flown to Texas. I've flown to Colorado already. I've driven to Wyoming. This quarantine really hasn't slowed me down. So.
Well, so let's go back to the beginning of everything. And you said it was a little bit of a struggle. So yeah. Let's talk about your first 2 years of business. Mm-hmm. What that looked like for you, and what your bookings and clientele look like, and as far as how much you don't have to give numbers as far as fiduciary secrets, but like actual client numbers and stuff, what those years look like versus the first 6 months of the shutdown.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I would say the first few months of the shutdown were probably equal to starting a business right away. Cause, so I don't know if most people know this, but at the beginning of the shutdown, I think Minnesota shut down in March or February of 2020.
Middle of March.
Yeah. Wedding, all photography was actually, the governor put it on hold completely. He said, pardon me, no weddings, no photography, no portraits. You may not be photographing anyone. That was completely canceled. So when I first started my business, like when I was 18, I was photographing people once in a blue moon. I'd have somebody, some friend of my mom's would need pictures. And that, that's really how I started. It was really slow. I did a lot of just free work, learning how to use my gear and how to use light. But then at the beginning of the shutdown, I mean, we were told, I had slowly started to ramp up clientele and was getting really excited about what was happening because I put a couple of years of work in. And at the beginning of the shutdown in 2020 in March, the governor ordered everything to stop. And that was the first time I ever dealt with depression. I've been a pretty outgoing, happy-go-lucky person my whole life. And I have never struggled with depression like I did in those first couple months. I was so frustrated. I was so sad. I was stuck at home all the time because this had been what I was pursuing full time. And just to have nothing to do, nothing to look forward to, nothing to get me out of the house was awful. Is the first time I legitimately wondered, like, what would it be like to just end, to be done? And so,
wait. You can't just blow past that. And I don't mean to be lighthearted about it, but
no, you're fine. Go ahead.
I want to. When we look at, I'm talking to my all of like 10 people who will watch this. So, hear what this young lady just said. She never had really experienced or dealt with depression. I mean, we all have sad moments in our lives. We lose someone or something doesn't go our way. But she used the word depression and said, and had wondered what it would just be like to end it. Now, here's where we're going to ask some for clarification, Laura. Are you talking about like just giving up on business, or like, I can't live like
no. Yeah, I can't live like this. Like, I would rather be dead than deal with this because, and you pointed out a lot of us have dealt with losing someone. I'm 23. I haven't lost anyone. I really haven't gone through a time in life I've gone through tough stuff that's been hard to grasp and cope with, but I've never gone through a time where I was sleeping so much. I wouldn't get up. I wasn't eating. I wasn't working out anymore. Like, my lifestyle just tanked. And I mean, does that kind of, because like I wanted, I contemplated suicide. I was like, I've never really thought of this, but just being done with life might not be so bad at this point. I worked really hard and everything shut down. I have no will to live. So yeah, hopefully that answers that.
Yeah, thanks. Let's end that right now. And we'll just not, cause now I'm depressed. No, okay.
Just spreading depression. No, what a sad interview. We'll be done now.
No, it probably sounds like I'm making light of it, but
no, you're fine.
As a person who has battled depression in their life, I can relate to that. And so I'm very empathetic to the people who are like, I've never felt this before.
Yeah.
And
it's a crazy space to be in for the first time. It's just crazy.
Let me ask this on a financial level.
Sure.
How much money had you sunk into, say the name of it, West Wedding
Co.
West Wedding Co. How much money had you and your husband sunk into the business by the time the shutdown came around? And how much of that was like, this is everything I have to do this?
Yeah. I mean, if you're really going to break down numbers like gas mileage and the car I drive and the gear that I use and the computers I bought, I mean, it would be like thousands. So making
that was
nothing,
out of pocket. And that was out of pocket.
Yeah, I decided I made the personal decision when I was 18 to never go into debt as a business owner. And so this was all like, this had been saved up. This had been, budget. I had made budget cuts to afford this stuff. My husband had chipped in. And so to just be sitting with like no income coming in was really frustrating. I mean, you go from building and sinking money and raising clients to this massive standstill. Was really frustrating.
Okay, so you had said something that your parents had pushed you to do what you love or what you really wanted to do.
Yeah.
What's your fallback then? Because obviously, that's like people in our culture today, and I'm just going to be honest, the lockdown proponents and the lefties, the leftists in our society, well, that's your fault if you don't have a fallback. So you should have gone and got a bachelor's degree or a master's degree in something so that you could be more essential. So
yeah.
what's your fallback? Isn't this your own fault?
Yeah. So, I didn't go to college. I didn't have a reason to, and I didn't want to be one of those kids who went to college just to do it and then had this pile of debt, you know, that they were dealing with. I hated how many people I saw do that, get pointless degrees. I do a lot of talking with people, and I had yet to meet someone, because I worked as a barista all through high school in a little coffee shop, and I asked people, because I like doing social experiments on people without them knowing. So I asked everyone, what did you get a degree in? What do you do for work now? And nobody had gotten a degree in what they were doing as a job. So I took that to mean I don't need a degree to do what I want to do in life. So I didn't have a fallback, degree wise. So I opened in defiance of the governor's orders in March, and I made a Facebook post about it and said, hey, friends and family, I'm opening. Here's the fine. If I get this fine, this is how much I'm going to need to pay. I need as much support as I can get right now. Because it was like, I'm going to die, or I can open up and we'll see what happens. So I started shooting. I had so many people reach out and just book instantly. Hey, we want to support you. We saw your opening. And then every time I would post their photos and tag them in those photos, one of their friends would reach out. And so I continually stayed busy until the governor lifted those restrictions.
What was the fine?
It was $2,000 if you were found shooting anything. People, family, a wedding.
Didn't matter if it was one person or.
Mm-hmm. No, it was just a flat $2,000 was the baseline. And so I put the math out there for my people in a post. I was like, hey, I don't even remember what I was charging, but I was like, I need X amount of people to book a shoot with me so that if I get found out for shooting, I can pay that fine off. And I had a lot of people. This was the amazing part. I had so many people reach out to me who were like, hey, we don't need photos, but I just want you to know if you get fined, we would like to help you pay that off. I had a lot of people just reach out to me and were like, let us know if this hits you. We will write you a check and contribute to you paying that off. So I had a lot of good support, this is not common in everything. I'm not going to make a broad statement, but in the homeschool community I grew up in rural Minnesota, there are a lot of very Republican people. So a lot of my clients tend to be a bit more on the Republican side. Not all at all, but quite a few. And those were a lot of the people who were like, hey, if this fine happens, please let us know so we can start raising funds for you.
So let's talk about that for a second. So
sure.
Here you are openly defying
mm-hmm.
the governor.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of your clientele, customers, friends, whatever, are saying, no, we're going to do business with you.
Mm-hmm.
I have to imagine that somewhere
mm-hmm.
in that mix is somebody who might be a little bit more left of center than you and I.
Yeah.
Who is engaging in commerce with you,
mm-hmm.
and without giving away secrets, have they kind of indicated like, I think some of this is ridiculous?
Oh yeah, so I did some sessions for people in the Minnetonka-Wayzata area and shot for some school teachers, photographed their families, and there's definitely a stereotype that the school system tends to be more liberal. So I would assume that some of those people came from a more liberal background. And there were quite a few who were like, hey, we're really glad you're doing this. This is so neat. This is such a great idea. I had people who had me photograph their families who were like, our family photographer who's been shooting for us for 10 years isn't doing sessions anymore. So we'll have you come do them. So I had a lot of instances where that happened, where people who would traditionally probably have been more left-leaning than I am, were perfectly open to having photos done. They were respectful and they supported me. So they obviously didn't care that much if they decided to financially support someone who was not following the governor's orders at that time.
I just want to point out once again to my, now with having you on, I'll have like 20 viewers.
Right.
I've doubled my normal viewers with you.
Right.
I want to point out that I have started a series of videos called Casual Cognitive Dissonance.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're experiencing right now in our conversation, Laura and I, is mm-hmm. a fleshing out of what that casual cognitive dissonance looks like, where people will be all on board with all sorts of restrictions until it affects them personally.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, when they can't get pictures or they can't go see a show that they want to see or go to their favorite restaurant, all of a sudden they can express that there's something wrong, but they can't put their finger on it.
Mm-hmm.
While they're also continuing to yell and scream at everyone else to stay shut down while they themselves are exercising. And I think that's great. I love it. I love that they came to you. And and I love to see people like you who are, you know, quite honestly, openly shaking your fist in defiance at an overreaching wannabe dictator and saying, no, I'm going to live.
Yeah.
Because that's really what it came down to for you, wasn't it? It's like, I'm going to live and you can't stop me.
Right. Well, it's like a lot of restaurants, I think right now are experiencing this kind of divide of we can either stay closed and close forever, or we can open and we might last, or we might close. You know, at this point, it's like, what do you have to lose? And that's kind of where I was open about that on my Facebook. I said, what do I have to lose? Like, I'm so miserable right now. I cannot get more miserable. Like, I'm just going to open and see what happens. And it really paid off. And I didn't do it. I really didn't want to open as a business owner in an arrogant way or in a rude way. I wanted to be polite and respectful, but just be very honest. Like, hey, this isn't working for me. My business is my business, and I'm going to keep running it. So,
well, let me ask you this:
sure.
Are you a proponent of? And I don't want you to betray yourself, but are you a proponent? Where do you live right now?
In Buffalo.
In Buffalo,
so Wright County, second most conservative county in Minnesota, I think. So
it's just slightly left of center instead of fully left.
Pretty much.
So you live in Buffalo.
Yep.
Are you, Laura, one of those people who walks into Quick Trip or wherever and doesn't worry too much about having your face covered?
Yep. I don't mind. And where I'm at, I won't disclose which businesses. We do have quite a few businesses who don't require masks. You can walk into grocery stores in this area and nobody will say anything. The Walmart out by us, about half the people aren't wearing their masks. So it's not a thing around here.
So half the population of Buffalo has died from COVID.
Actually, no, crazy enough. We're actually doing fine out here. I've talked to quite a few nurses and various.
Stop lying.
I know.
Half the population has died. And so anyway, you were saying you were talking to people.
No, I've talked to quite a few nurses who have said the ICU is not full, and we need to move on. We need to get over this. And so, you know, I've had a lot of people in right. It's all gonna be okay. I've had a lot of people say, you know, they think that Minneapolis should wear masks because it's more densely populated, and, you know, out here in the boonies, it's fine. And I do get that it's not as densely populated, but we have, I mean, there were no like rinks scraped off on our lake's frozen over. But so people scraped out their own and have been congregating out there and playing hockey. And it's like, we're not seeing this mad spike in numbers, and people are not wearing masks in Holiday and in Walmart and, you know, in all these different places. So, you know, you'd think if COVID was this Black Plague killer that, you know, all of us would be dead by now, but we're not out here in Buffalo. We're doing just fine.
Okay, so let me ask this.
Yeah.
Is COVID real?
Yes, absolutely. Totally. It's a virus that has been in the US before. We've had strains of COVID come through before.
Okay, so you're not a COVID denier?
No.
Okay. Are you the kind of person who is going to see somebody wearing a mask and you're going to yell at them for being stupid?
No.
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 We're not going to find some secret videotape or video of you out there freaking out on people in public?
No, I actually just got Twitter, so nobody could ever look back like 5 years in my history and find a tweet or a video of me yelling at anyone. So I've got a clean record that way.
They cannot find the video.
Yeah, the video is gone. Yeah, no, I don't mind if people wear masks. I don't care if people get a vaccine. Like, if you want to stay home, I know people who've been home for the last 6 months. If you want to do that, that's fine. But that's not what I want to do. I went to Texas for 8 days. I was in Colorado for half a week, and I'm going to keep doing stuff like that. So.
Okay, so how are you going to address? You said you're going to California.
Yes.
Okay, so how are you going to address that, Laura? Because I mean, here a few weeks ago, we had a couple who flew from California back to their home state of Hawaii,
Mm-hmm.
and they were arrested for reckless endangerment because they had tested positive for COVID. They didn't. My understanding is they didn't even show any symptoms. They had just tested positive, and they were arrested for coming back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I mean,
so
California has cracked down on people. Like, you go to California now for any reason, and you're supposed to quarantine. So you're putting yourself out there, and I'm exposing you now. So I apologize.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Yeah, so like I said, I live in a pretty conservative county, which means that law enforcement who would be enforcing dragging me out of my house and charging me with that would probably not be on board with doing it in the first place.
Well, but that's here. What about going there?
Oh, going there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. In my mind, I can always just rent a car and drive home and see what happens. Like, I can just put the effort in. The couple who live in California didn't display any sort of concern with me being there or getting there. They never once asked, like, are you going to quarantine once you get here? Are you going to quarantine on the way home? Are you okay with traveling here or there? They were pretty unfazed. I know quite a few people who've flown to and from California during quarantine and have not had an issue. So I am going to just trust and roll with the punches on this one and hope that it ends well. But if there's some ridiculous thing that I need to go through, I'm just going to try to process it in a way that is not illegal, but not just caving. So like I said, if I have to like get a car and drive back, so be it. Otherwise, I don't know. We'll see what happens when I get there.
No, and I ask because it's, you know, it's a reality. Yeah. It's
for sure.
I think it's one thing for, well, quite frankly, it's one thing for those of us who are sitting here in, to some degree, in relative obscurity, to say, look, I'm going to defy, and even be vocal about it in their real life, you know, in their career, you know, or whatever the case might be, to be incredibly vocal about it here. But then all of a sudden, this is your livelihood, and you've already gone through one phase where it's like, I could lose everything, to the point where now people from around the country are picking up business with you. And so you're kind of looking at this from a whole different level of risk, because a lot of us can very easily say, well, I'm not going to tell my employer that I'm traveling, because they don't have a right to know when I travel and when I don't travel and when I come back and when I don't. Well, they would know when I don't come back, but but for you, you're your employer, and it's you against a state machine. So traveling to a state that has these things in place, and then coming back to a state that also tells you you probably should isolate. That's a big, that's a bigger I know you're like, thanks for making me think about that.
Well, no, I know so many people who have traveled to high risk areas, come back and have gotten right back to normal life. So like, there is the chance that something could happen, but I am going to be planning and hoping for my trip to be like all the other people I know who've traveled to hot spots and come back, who've been like, hey, I'm here at work again. Yeah, I was in, you know, I don't know, where are the big hot spots right now? They're always changing.
I love it.
I mean, they are. You get on a plane and they list off the 15 places you need to quarantine, and it's kind of always different. But I do know people have been to California and come back. I know people have been to Michigan, come back, Arizona and come back, Florida and come back. You know, Florida's a big bad hot spot right now. Everyone's dying. And I just always remind people, Florida's all old retired people. Of course they're all dying. They've always all been dying.
We did not.
It's true. It's true. Somebody made a comment once. They were like, isn't it weird that Florida has so many hospitals and nursing homes? Florida is a big retirement state. it's a reality.
That's why Florida is the only southern state where everybody sounds like they're from New York or Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's a bunch of snowbirds.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know people have been going to and from, and so my hope is that I will have a smooth journey just like them. And like I said, we'll cross whatever insane bridges when we get to them. So that's all I can say on that one.
I probably dwelt on that a little bit too much, but you're the first person that I have a good friend whose entire business, it revolves around traveling, and he does timing for marathons and road races and triathlons. It's his company. And when he sold it, he stayed on with the company, and he hadn't traveled at all until just a couple of months ago for his first time, because they weren't doing anything like that. And so for him, that was, huge. That really cut into his life. So I'm going to ask this from a more personal perspective right now.
Sure.
You mentioned last night when we were chatting, when I asked you if you'd be interested in sitting for an interview, you were like, "Oh no, I can't. I just got done swimming. I look a mess."
Oh yeah.
So here, you're a swimmer.
Yes.
I'm imagining you don't have your own personal indoor pool.
No, incredibly. Those are only for really rich people.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't have a pool. And
you're
so
not swimming
I go
outside in January.
Nope, lakes are frozen over. So I'm kind of stuck there. I have not bad scoliosis, but I do have scoliosis. And so I did also wreck my right leg because this is so mean. But when I was in high school, everyone was in public school sports. And my parents were like, "No, you're not going to do that." And then all my friends all my homeschool friends who I graduated with, quite a few of them, I would say, went to college and all gained a ton of weight because they all quit doing sports. And I was like, I'm going to do the reverse. So I'm going to start to train to run marathons and be a track runner now that I've graduated high school. So I started to run with no training and ended up wrecking my right leg. But my mom was a swimmer for Edina. And so I was like, okay, if I can't run, I'm going to swim. And so I've been swimming probably for the last couple of years now. And then had to deal with the latest shutdown of our gym, which just absolutely sucked.
I could see it in your face. Like you must swim like every day.
Yep. I swim every day. And so yesterday, I think it was yesterday, the day before, I called the gym and I was like, somebody just told me that the pools are open. And they were like, yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, where's my gear? And I gathered everything and I ran to the pool and swam. It was amazing. But yeah, not being able to have that, like, a lot of people from down south who are in any sort of quarantine are like, it's not that bad. Like, we just go outside. But it's really tough to exercise when the wind chill is like -40. Like, it's really impossible to go for a run when it's that cold. And so I just wasn't able to work out as much. And so as soon as the pools opened a couple of days ago, I've gone every day since, and it's been really good.
Oh, you're so upbeat. It's hard to believe that
I was homeschooled.
How many weeks into 2 weeks to flatten the curve are we?
I know, almost a year in. Isn't that crazy? 14 days to flatten the curve, and we're coming up on a year pretty soon.
Yeah. So for somebody who was, at the lowest of the low, and you said admittedly it might have had something to do with the fact that you hadn't ever really dealt with anything by way of loss. You're actually doing well, and
definitely, yeah. I'm in a really good place compared to where I was. And a lot of that has just come from like sheer gratefulness because a lot of people to ask me all the time, like they come up assuming that I'm struggling right now. And I get to point to the fact that I had a record amount of weddings to shoot. I have a record amount of weddings booked now. I have out of state weddings booked. I have people who refer me to clients all the time. I am just overwhelmed all the time by the support I have right now. There is no reason for me to be complaining. I can get really greedy for more, but I got no reason to complain right now.
Well, so let's talk about that for a second.
Sure.
How much of this might actually be because you've been brave?
So like I mentioned when we were talking earlier, a lot. There we go. I gotta switch my screen to white or it goes dark and then I go really yellow. So like I had said, this area,
spoken like a photographer.
I had to keep my lighting correct in here. Like I had told you, I'm living in a more rural conservative area. And so I think a lot of my clients have had the same sort of maybe a thought process that I have of like, hey, we respect, if you want to do a mask, if you want to close your business, that's fine, but you can't shut us down and keep us from doing what we want. So I had pretty much every wedding in 2020 said, we're not going to cancel our wedding, we're just going to move it. And so everyone, when the governor said no big receptions or no big ceremonies, everybody I knew took their wedding way out into the country, got married on beautiful farmland, and had the same big wedding they were going to originally have. So I think a lot of people just that I know personally had the same attitude, and we're like, screw it too. Like if we might as well get married, whatever, we're not going to wait. And so when you're dealing with like-minded people who then refer you to more like-minded people, you tend to grow, I think, during this type of thing rather than fall. So
to kind of sum it up, not all of it totally, but kind of sum up what you're saying, adversity has proven for people with the right mindset to, in your perspective, the adversity has proven to be a strengthening aspect, whereas others aren't responding to the adversity well,
right,
and are diametrically opposed in their opinions. And while they might be the ones who would be standing there with their hands out saying, no, give me because I can't take care of myself, folks like you and others who you've dealt with are over here going, no, I'm going to do for myself because that's what the American dream is about, right?
Right. And I've been talking to so many people today, especially after what happened in DC yesterday, who've been like, we're all alone. I feel so alone. There's nobody out here who's like with me. And I looked at the numbers of the people who showed up in DC, and I thought, how many people does each one of those individuals there represent? Like hundreds. And so when people say, oh, you're totally alone, or we're alone, we have no one who's like, on our side, this type of a thing really shows that you do have a big support system, because I, stood apart with the support of so many people, and those big numbers of people, that silent majority, came to lift me up and be my support system. So whenever people say like, stuff like America's dead, we're the only ones here, it's like, no, do something to bring those people out of the woodwork. They're a very quiet, very humble group, but when they need to be there, they'll be there. And that's really what I've experienced, is just, the most random people offering to help me, the most random people wanting to pay off a fine if I get one, people who have said, screw it, we'll have you come photograph our wedding still, we're still going to get married, and here's some referrals to boot. That support system. And again, we haven't done anything constitutionally illegal. We're just doing what we need to do to survive and thrive and stay alive, to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. And there's a lot of people who, I think when you stand apart from the generic norm, the majority in the United States, that silent majority really comes forward.
The normies.
The normies, yeah.
I know the lingo. I'm up with your kids' talk.
Are you now? Okay.
Oh, you're done. Have you done interviews before? Because you're really good at this.
I've been interviewed once before, and the guy who interviewed me was in tears by the end. So I was like, I think I really got something here. If I can make a 50-year-old man cry when I answer his political questions, I think I'm in okay shape.
So you've done one of these recently?
No, I did it last year.
Oh.
No.
What was that about?
I went to a political training conference, and then they wanted to interview people. And so I was in the category of young people to interview. And the gentleman doing all the camera work asked me if I thought there was any chance of unifying old Republicans and young Republicans, of bridging the gap between old and young, and then what that would look like. And then I gave him a very long answer. And then he was all teary and was like, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do. So he was, oh, there went my battery. Did I lose you?
No,
there we go.
Good.
So yeah, he was very emotional towards the end. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to take that as a win. And if I ever do this again, I'll just try to be as genuine and enthusiastic as possible. So.
Well, you've done great with that. How are your parents handling your outspokenness? Are they?
My parents are really supportive. When I was really young, my parents took me and I think there were only 3 or 4 of us, 3 siblings at that point, and we packed bags for Michelle Bachmann. One of the oldest voices I can remember in my head, like, you know, when you think back to like, what are the first voices I can remember? One of them was Rush Limbaugh. Like, I grew up on Rush Limbaugh. And so my parents have been really supportive. I've done many.
My viewership just crashed again.
Right. Yeah. Oh, a trigger word. I've been going to tax rallies and pro-life rallies since I was a kid. I mean, I remember my parents bundling me up when I was like 5. So at that point, there would have been 2 of us siblings. And sitting in a small wagon and being pulled around the Capitol at different rallies. So they've always been very active. We were big in the Tea Party movement. And then when I went through high school, I really kind of started to develop a negative attitude and was like, some people told me it's better to just not try. Like, if you keep your head in the sand, you won't know what's going on and it won't affect you. And I was like, that sounds great to me. So for a couple years, I stayed really quiet, and then started to get connected with some people and realized this is super important. And, you know, in a more humble way, like, you know, I'll be darned if this country's taken away from us. So I've been fairly active ever since. I've met some amazing people, and then have just been able to network with, I mean, people in all walks of life who've given me incredible information on what America really is, who we are, what needs to be protected, what's actually going on. And so it's really become a passion of mine to just be politically involved as an adult and to pass that on to my kids if I get to have kids someday. And, you know, really everybody I come in contact with, any young person, I'm like, do you vote? Okay, if you vote, do you volunteer? Do you attend your county meetings? Do you go to board meetings? Do you know your commissioners? Do you know your reps? So you
have a reputation.
I do. I had a friend of mine tell me, he was like, people trust you. And I was like, what people? Like, I don't know anyone, but it has been neat to be able to share information and slowly build a name. It's always fun when you call somebody who you don't really know, but they've like, oh, I've heard of you. You're like, okay, I'm starting to network enough that I'm getting in. But like a lot of
so we're going to run most of. Oh, sorry. So we're going to run you for office.
I get told that all the time. And that is in the plan someday. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's a huge blessing to be able to be politically involved. And whenever I meet young people, I'm like, if you're sitting on the sidelines.
You know, I know people, right?
I do. I looked at your page. I know people too. So if that was a threat, I'm going to throw it back at you.
That was literally a threat. That was, yes.
Right.
No, I know some people that would like to know you.
I'm going to bet that we mutually know them. They probably already know me. But yeah, anyone you can throw my name out to. I always love getting calls from people who are like, so-and-so told me about you, and I get to talk to them. So I noticed Jeremy Munson's name on your page, and some of the people he's connected with, I've been able to talk to. But I mean, there are so many amazing people to learn from in life, especially if you want to be politically involved, who are people who are on really little, like, who are at the grassroots level, who just have so much information. So I always tell young people, like, if you can be quiet and listen and like be humble, there's so much information to glean out there. Like, it's unreal.
Yeah, I'm a nobody. I've been having some of that same experience that you've been having, honestly, Laura. I was at the rally in Albert Lee on Sunday afternoon, and I have some friends that I have regular contact with, and one of them was there at the rally, and she was standing next to me, and people, it's kind of just a short train of people kept coming up and going, I know you. Mm-hmm. I watch your video.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to process that. I'm no good with that because I was
Yep.
told my wife a couple of weeks ago, the entire impetus for this channel was more than anything a cathartic release for me because people get tired of listening to me. So
the voice had to go somewhere.
Yeah, the voice did. It had to go somewhere. Yep. Exactly. And so this happened, and
that's awesome.
Not even a year into my channel, and I get recognized at places now.
Yeah, so, as I say, be careful. Give it another year, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I got millions of people to answer to now. It's amazing how small news networks are taking off. I know young people who started recording videos on their iPhones, and now they've got their podcasts and stuff. So it's all conservatives are always like, nobody's going to listen to me, and then all of a sudden, there's your armies waiting.
I had 343 subscribers last night, and I woke up this afternoon, like, because I told you I'm on the night schedule. I woke up this afternoon, and I was back down to 340. So I lose for every one I get, I lose, and I don't know why. I'm like, what did I don't even know what did I do?
What did I do? I'm a nice guy.
But then a friend of mine who has a very, very big YouTube platform says, oh no, YouTube unsubscribes people from people like you all the time. And I'm okay. Yeah. So
it means you're doing something right. The more censorship we have, the more we know that we are feared. And that's always a positive way of looking at it, is the more the media has to silence us, the more we know we're gaining traction, because now they're worried.
So I'm going to let you, I want you to give your closing thought, and then kind of what you would want, not just people your age, adults your age,
sure,
but just the average rocks and cows, 19-year-old cook country people to know. I mean, why is this important? It's not just you being greedy. Right. What is it that drives you? Why is this so important to you?
Yeah. So I don't know if you know who Ben Dorr is. Yep. Do you know who that is? Yeah. So he put a post out, and he said, start replacing the phrase "be safe," which is like the new trending thing. Everyone bids everyone, be safe because there's this pandemic going around. And he said, replace that with "be free." And that really struck a chord. The two, I don't think usually go hand in hand. I don't think there's usually safety guaranteed in freedom. There's a lot of risk guaranteed in freedom, but 100 times over, I think most of us would choose freedom over being in tyranny and being safe. And so I guess that's just kind of, I would love to see more people. And obviously when you have a storefront or a large restaurant, you're definitely more in the crosshairs of being attacked and being stopped and being fined and stuff. I'm just a teeny tiny little business. And, I don't have nearly the face that some of these bigger companies have and would be showing if they were going to defy. But I want people to keep that phrase in mind more, of being free, and really question, are you being free? There's a crazy story of these back in World War II, this church that would, the church building was next to railroad tracks. And every Sunday, a train full of Jews would come by, and they would be on their way to a concentration camp, and they would be screaming and crying and praying. And this church, it was an interview with a man who went to church there, and he said they would sing loud enough in church so that they couldn't hear the people screaming in the train. And they would feel the rumble of the train, and they would just ignore it, and they would sing as loud as they could until the train was passed so that they couldn't hear. And it really, I don't know, it just made me think, is what's happening right now our train? And are we just singing loud enough that we can't hear it? Are we not recognizing the signs? And that phrase that Ben Dorr used, "be free," really woke me up. And it just made me think, like, are we letting things happen that shouldn't be happening? Are we standing by while things that are being passed and are being glorified in our culture, are those being put in place? And will those affect in such a negative way the next generation or two or three? Like, in the name of safety, are we letting our country change? And so that phrase, stop saying "be safe" and start saying "be free," it really really woke me up. And that's what I'm hoping more people start to do, is realize that this is not freedom. This is not about our health. This is not about bettering America. This is just about control. And we are passing things on. We're letting all of our freedoms go in order to be safe. And that's not freedom. None of what's happening right now is freedom. So I don't know, that would be my end. Kind of a long-winded end, but you know, takes a while to get to the point. There's a lot of like digging that has to go on first. I didn't get to prep for these questions, and I don't have a teleprompter, so.
Oh, that's why that's why this is conversation. So not you all have heard her. Yeah, she's for lack of better terminology, she's been a success story, but it's because she's been willing to take the risk, and she is the story that needs to be out there to encourage the people like the Larvita McFarquhars in Havenstarden and the Lisa Monets right now, who at the Alibi Drinkery, who just was told today that it's a $2,000 fine every day that she defies the judge now. Not even though the governor has walked back these restrictions and so graciously and magnanimously allowed people to live their lives just to a limited level. She still now has to face these contempt of court fines every day for nothing more than running her business. And in what Laura has said, it's like so many people with L names that are defined. There's something to this, and they're all women. And these are the stories that need to be out there. In the face of defiance, there is success. And on the back of defiance, there is success. I don't care how safe you are. If you capitulate and kowtow to unconstitutional mandates from ruling authorities who are really supposed to be our servants and not our rulers, then you're not safe either. You're not safe. Not only are you not free, but you're not safe. And that's what this young lady is saying. And so you all need to remember Laura Mundahl and where you saw her, because when she's running for office,
you saw me here first.
You saw her here first. Yeah, that's my claim to fame. I always get to people first. And
there you go.
And
there you go.
So yeah, you saw her here first, and remember who she is. And if you have a wedding or an event, or you just want to have pictures taken, she clearly is not afraid to travel. So
yep. Yeah, right. I'll be anywhere. I'll go anywhere.
And so hit her up, connect with her.
Can I add one thing really quick?
I suppose, Miss Gabrielle.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So in the month of February, if you book, because I had so many people ask if I was doing something special for Valentine's Day. If you book in the month of February, and you book a couple session, and I'll extend this on this channel to family sessions, $100 of your session goes directly to Operation Underground Railroad to combat sex trafficking. A Marine friend of mine brought that organization to my attention. And if you hear from trafficking victims, or you read their stories, you meet with people who fight on their behalf, it's incredible. It's extremely just scary to hear their stories. And so through the month of February, you don't have to have your photos in February, but if you book your session in February for another time, $100 of your session goes to Operation Underground Railroad.
And I am not sponsored. She is not sponsoring my channel. I want you to be aware of that. I did not pay her. She's not paying me. Nope. So, but we will definitely put, in fact, we will make sure that you have a link to her website. We will make sure that there is a link to Operation Underground Railroad. And we will make that in the description of this conversation.
Perfect.
So make sure you follow her. Check her out. She's on Facebook. She's got a website. She also has a page for her business, and she's now on Twitter, and there is no evidence. So
of anything illegal of any sort
or dangerous,
right?
Other than her defiance. But thanks for tuning in.